the pull of the ego, which is, again, to care about external things and to care about what people think about us and everything we spoke about until now, what that does is make it impossible for us to get to know ourselves. And ourselves going inside, which is really the whole purpose of spiritual work, does reveal all the wisdom that we already have.
Hello, and welcome to Spiritually Hungry. So, anyone who has children will understand this example very well, but it applies to anybody in any situation. One day you suddenly, although there's no such thing as suddenly, you notice your child giving you a little less hugs or having more independence, or this was a conversation I had earlier today at the gym with someone. They're empty nesters and the pain of the last one leaving the house is unbearable. Sometimes it's small changes, like outgrowing something trivial, but still there is an ache that most people feel. So in case that you haven't picked up on our topic today, it's change. And although change is along for the ride, I love when you look surprised. And I actually knew. I knew because when we talked about this topic,
not what we spoke
about, and I knew, and I was going to warn you, and I said, no, Michael needs to be responsible and really pay attention to the things that I say. So then I thought, I'm not going to actually check that he knows the topic. You heard, we said this, and then you're like, but I want to talk about this. And I said, okay, but that kind of covers it. You're like, yeah, it covers it. But still, the theme is change.
Okay.
But either way, I see not a lot of notes. So I think you'll be able to.
The wisdom is right up here.
Great. I think you'll be able to wing it.
All right.
Okay.
When did you decide to change the topic?
Well, we discussed it yesterday.
No,
it's okay, sweetie. No. It's okay.
Okay.
This is how we practice to learn to listen.
All right.
So as I was saying, and as we discussed yesterday and decided and agreed upon.
As you were making the intro, I'm thinking that doesn't sound like the topic we spoke about.
And I knew that's where the wheels were turning. And I said, he's getting onto it. He's going to figure it out in a minute. And I let you do that.
Yes. Okay.
So as we discussed, decided, agreed on, we're talking about change. So it's an important thing because it affects us emotionally and also spiritually. So
again, to be clear, you're talking about change that happens to us as opposed to change we initiate.
That's a layer, but the ultimate thing that we decided to talk about was why even positive change can feel painful. It's the idea, and why this is an exciting topic, is that change is there for every part of our lives, and people resist it so often, and they choose comfort, even if it's an uncomfortable kind of comfort, right? Even if it's a comfort that is stale now, they'll still choose that over uncertainty because change is scary. It feels really frightening. So we're going to unpack all of that, and then I think you'll be clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah, what I would add is that I think that you said something interesting. I think you said that change can be painful. I think all pain is actually coming from a lack of, I don't know if the word is openness, but acceptance of change. The reality is that probably almost every time we feel pain, it's because we're meant to be changing
and we're fighting
it.
Exactly. And there's so many isms about this kind of thing. Anything worthwhile is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful. We know this intellectually, but the actuality of it, as soon as we feel it, we're kind of like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. Even if it's something we want, by the way.
And I have a deep thought about this,
I love deep thoughts.
Yes. As opposed to, and I think very few of our listeners will get the reference, Jack Handy's Deep Thoughts.
No, I thought that's why that's so good. They should bring that back, actually.
I don't know if they could bring it back, but I don't think most of our listeners.
It was so good.
He is very good.
Let's watch that, actually. When we're like 5 minutes before we fall asleep.
There's a book. I don't know.
I know you had that, didn't you?
I had it years ago. But I saw one yesterday. Well, there's one. This is not the one I saw yesterday. One of my favorite ones. So for those who don't know, Jack Handy used to have this thing on Saturday Night Live years ago that were called Deep Thoughts. For example, one of them was...
But he delivered them so well, which is part of it.
Yeah, his voice is very good. But he said, I remember Thanksgiving years ago. It was the best Thanksgiving. We didn't have a lot of food, and all we had to eat was bread. But it was me and my sister and my parents at the table, and it was one of the best Thanksgivings ever. And then I remember after the meal, we went upstairs to mom and dad's room and they were eating turkey. Come to think of it, maybe it wasn't the best Thanksgiving ever. Anyway, but my deep thought is this.
Totally. I love that. Okay.
That the real purpose of life is to remove from ourselves the weight of that which is not our essence, not essential to us. Ego is a big part of it. And when we think about, and this is the scary, deeper thought around this, if we think about death.
I love how you do this. I have like a whole way to build our listeners up to get to talk about death and ego. We just go straight into it.
Yeah. So a little preview. The Kabbalists teach that death is only painful to the degree that we are enmeshed in the physical, in the ego. And that for an individual who spends their life transcending the ego, transcending the attachment to the physical, then for them death is actually a positive moment. The Talmud uses the example like taking a hair out of milk, or sort of that sense of ease of transfer. I remember Aryeh Kaplan wrote this in one of his books that I read many years ago, where there was a child asked his parent, what is death? And he says, sometimes you fall asleep in our bed, and then I pick you up in the middle of the night and I put you back in your bed. He says that's what death is.
It's a transference.
It's from a place where we actually don't belong,
like you're plucked out, but very
to the place
effortlessly.
that we actually do belong.
And I think to what your point is, when people live their lives a certain way, when they get to that point in their lives, it feels kind of like a natural progression, next step kind of thing, and they're prepared for it or ready, even if they're not fully aware of that. And which is why the importance of living a life a certain way is not only the point, but it's a necessary existence.
But I would add, which I find this inspiring, but if you think that the pain you're experiencing with your ego today is painful,
that's ego death.
Just wait. Just wait what happens if you don't remove that weight now. It just gets stronger and stronger. Then death can be even a scarier and more painful experience. All this to say, this is not a negative thought. I think this should drive us to do everything that we can to separate ourselves from the ego, which is not our essence. Do everything we can not to become too attached to those things that are not essential to us.
So I have to ask, because I know our listeners are thinking, whoa, what is Michael talking about? This scarier thing that's waiting for us. I know the Zohar writes a lot about that.
No. It's not. It's honestly, it's not that complicated. But if you walk into the room and you get upset that somebody lifted you the wrong way, right? So that's a second of attachment to ego, because in reality, you shouldn't care less what people are thinking about you, right? Who cares that this person is looking at you the wrong way, or maybe just said something bad about you? That's your ego. That's not you. And you experience that pain. But when you experience that pain and hold it as real, you're adding a little weight to your soul that now has to break away from that. And if a person does that for 120 years, adds weight to the soul, that pain, imagine that pain that you experience when somebody said something terrible to you 1 billion times in a moment, right? All it is breaking away from the ego. You can make it an easy process or a difficult process. You can be proactive about it consistently or not. But that's a process we're all going to go through. And as we said before, I think it's really important to understand that almost all pain is an association that we have with our ego that we have not yet disconnected from.
It's interesting too, because the irony is we have so many thoughts going through our heads all the time, like, why did that person look at me? And then we think about it, and then we're attached to that, and they didn't like me, I'm not good enough. In reality, we don't even know what anybody's thinking, and it doesn't even matter. Funnily enough, I was speaking to somebody today at the gym who I've spoken to periodically, but we ended up talking for 45 minutes today and had a very, very, very deep conversation. Locker rooms are the best places to have those conversations, by the way. It just happens organically for whatever reason. Then she starts to tell me what she thought of me after the 45, like what she always.
Oh, really? I don't think you showed this.
Yeah, I didn't, because I try not to focus on any of that. It happened to be very nice, actually. But like, she's like, yeah, I always thought you were this and that and whatever. And I'm like, I never would have thought that, because she never even paid attention to me. It was just passing. I didn't think she ever noticed anything. Right. So it's all a silly, silly game. Anyway, the point is, back to the intro of why positive change can be painful, because even if you get what you wanted, right? So you got the promotion, the new relationship, the move, the healing, the growth, the breakthrough, we can still feel grief. Why? Because that chapter's ended and that version of ourselves can't come with us. And that's even if we're going to a better place, right? Sometimes the place we're going to seems like a punishment, and we don't know who we are in those moments or who we're meant to be. And the other thing is, I think we tend to interpret the bad feelings that come along with change as a sign that we're going in the wrong direction, right? That I thought I wanted this, but maybe I didn't. Why do I feel unsettled? Why am I emotional? Why do I feel like I'm going backwards? That's just you being in the middle of a process. And I think that we have a real desire to either I'm here and this is where I'm supposed to be, or that's where I'm supposed to go. Nobody feels comfortable in this kind of middle gray area, which is really where change occurs, right? We often say process is the purpose, but people always want to edit out process and understand where they need to be.
And I think that's an important point in that.
I just want to give one example, and then I want to say that because I think it's such a great, I like visuals. So I once read about hermit crabs. When they outgrow their shells, there's a period where they're incredibly vulnerable. So they've left the old shell and they don't quite fit or settle into the new one yet. So this transition that they're in, they feel exposed. And I think that we experience things in terms of change the same way. There's a period where we no longer feel comfortable in our old life or our old existence or our old way of doing things. Yet this new place we find ourselves in is incredibly uncomfortable, not right there. I remember I've had this certain periods of my life, especially from age my 40s until I turned 50. It was kind of like
you're more than 40 years old?
I could sense I was going into a new phase, but I didn't want to let go of where I was because I was really enjoying that. But I knew that I wasn't meant to stay there yet. And I really kind of struggled with this because I had so much joy in like that time. And I knew what was coming for me, which is what I want. And as necessary, felt very, very heavy and a lot more responsibility, and not necessarily the ones that I wanted, but something I was being called to do, right? That area of not being out yet of that other phase and going into a new one, I found to be very murky. And I'm sure our listeners can understand that. But the point of bringing that up is that this is what transition feels like. And that's not the destination. Also, like people, as soon as they start to go there, they're like, oh, wait, this is what change feels like. I don't want it.
Yeah. I was going to say two things. One, once you understand that life is about change, and that necessarily means that every new chapter leaves an old chapter behind. And you have to be able to embrace that. And it's like you said before, it's okay to even feel a little bit sad, but know that that doesn't mean it's the wrong thing. It's just the way life is meant to take us and bring us. But another maybe...
I mean, quite honestly, you're not going to like this example.
I'm not, me personally?
Well, you're not going to relate to it.
Or any of our listeners.
No, our listeners will, and men should hear it too, because it will make a lot more sense to you. When women go through menopause, there's a lot of mourning there too. Why? Because they're not able to bring life to the world through their bodies if they chose to, right? Some women don't. And their body isn't showing up for them the way that it had for 40 years, 45 years. Imagine it's a very different kind of foreign feeling. But if you look at it as all of that went out of me, right? A woman every month having her period, that's to create life. When that no longer happens, that energy that was leaving the body is now meant to come and feed a woman to grow herself. And now, if you look at it like that, this change is not tragic. It's actually the making of you. It's how you become wiser and who you're meant to be. So everything can be shifted, but you have to not fear change.
Absolutely.
That was the example.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Oh, was it
Thank
beautiful?
you. Yeah, it was.
Huh.
It was. But I think this relates to another point, which is really important, and that is that deep inside we know where we're supposed to be going. We know what we're supposed to be focusing on. this concept that the Kabbalists teach that before we're born, the entire trajectory of our lives is revealed to us. And I think a big part of the spiritual work that hopefully each one of us does is to go deep down inside to not only know what we know, but to experience that knowledge. And this relates again to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is that ego or attachment to external things limits our ability to connect to that which we know deeply. And there's always this pull in life to stay on the external, and that necessarily blinds us to truth, to knowledge, to direction that is already inside of us.
Well, the ego is very, very invested in control, the need to know, and comfort.
And not to change.
Exactly. So if we understand, because ego is defined so many different ways, and I need an ego to have confidence. And the ego we're talking about is the one that always gets you into trouble. That tells you, you're like, oh, I am curious about change, but don't go there. It's better the devil you know than the one you don't. Or the ego's like, oh, you've built this really great, comfortable life. Why are you going to go looking for something else now? It holds us back time and time and time again. But what it also does, it makes us think that our ego desires are the important ones, and that those are the ones we should listen to. So basically, it cuts a life short time and time again, but we think we're right. And then we become blind to all the other things that are available to us. And that's why it's so dangerous.
And by the way, it's also a path that leads to pain, right?
That kind of pain that, yes.
But I was going to say another, like, to differentiate and make clear, when we're talking about the ego, we're talking about that which desires to keep us shallow. External things, people think, anything outside of me.
What do they think? Do they like me? How
all
does
of
this
that,
look?
my position,
my title. Let's talk about titles for a second. That's why people build lives around something and they can never change it, even if it doesn't speak to them. I'm a great, successful accountant, but I hate accounting. I want to go paint on a beach, but what will that look like? What will people think? I remember when I was a marathon runner, I really liked that title because it tells you a lot about my personality without knowing me, right? Being disciplined, having goals, blood, sweat, tears, it says a lot. And then I'm like, but I don't enjoy running like that anymore. It doesn't feel good on my body anymore. But I remember I was like, wow, Monica, really, like, you're that attached. But it made me really think about this idea that we tend to, again, like, oh, I need to be this thing, or who am I? Well, you can be whoever you want to be. And that's what's so powerful about this idea.
And most importantly, again, that your title or the way others view you should really get, and this is hopefully part of the work that one does, gets to a point where you couldn't care less. Right?
And the crazy thing is, just as people start to become a little bit more successful in their lives, or they achieved something that they had been trying to achieve, that ego boy is, oh, look what you did. Let's do more of that. Forget all the other stuff you've been working on. This is the only thing to focus on. And again, like you said, it leads to more pain because we become blind to the important things. I thought this was really interesting. There is psychological research around this. There were studies that show that people are often more stressed by uncertainty than by guaranteed discomfort. Is that insane? A 50% chance of negative outcome can create more anxiety than knowing something difficult is definitely going to happen. Why? Because we hate the unknown. I mean, so does our nervous system. But if we had more certainty in the process, then we wouldn't be affected like that. I was talking about cold plunges with somebody, and they're like, oh, I don't think it's good for women. And I know there's not a lot of research out there. Like, it goes into fight or flight. And I said, yeah, I understand that. But what if you're able to control your mind, and when you're in that cold water, you're not feeling scared? Then it's going to be good for you too, right? So we do have the ability to change our relationship with change.
Right. Uncomfortable, but not scared.
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk about the ego, there's something really important. We touched upon it a minute ago, the idea that the ego blinds us to that which we know, right? So that when we're focused,
and when you say we know, you mean soul knowing.
Soul knows, right? So again, I think it's worth repeating over and over again that you and I, each one of us, has all the knowledge and direction that we need. We were born with it, and it's within us. But the purpose for which we came into this world is to rediscover that which we already know. And the pull of the ego, which is, again, to care about external things and to care about what people think about us and everything we spoke about until now, what that does is make it impossible for us to get to know ourselves. And ourselves going inside, which is really the whole purpose of spiritual work, does reveal all the wisdom that we already have. I would add to that it also allows us to reveal the blessings that are meant to come to us. So, for example, there's a famous story in the Bible about Jacob, and there were two brothers, Jacob and Esau, and there were two sisters, Rachel and Leah. Leah was meant to marry Esau, who was the negative brother, who was not a positive person. And it says that she prayed, right? And what the Kabbalah teaches, what prayer actually is a meditative process where the individual gets to be in touch with the depths of themselves. And by doing that, it says, through her prayers, through her connection to her soul rather than her ego, she merited to marry Jacob. Now let's take a step back. Had she not gone inside, continued to listen to her ego, not really disassociate herself from what one would call the ego and the thoughts of, everything that everybody thinks about me and all of that, she would have married the wrong soulmate. So what this tells us is that getting to know myself, more importantly, getting connected to the essence of my soul, which separates me from the ego, is not just that I now have knowledge that I would not have had otherwise, or direction that I would not have had otherwise. That's also true. But also it helps me uncover and connect to the blessings that I'm meant to have.
The truth. So why was it set up that way for her to come to this understanding?
It's set up that way for every single one of us.
So let's unpack this, because it will be it's a good story. And I think that
thank you.
Let's really unpack it. So she was betrothed to him, like it was set up, or she was or he was the first. Like, tell us
each person has two paths in life: the path of the ego and the path of the soul. And depending which one you're connected to, that's the one you're on. So for each one of us, as for you and for me right now, there is a path filled with blessings, and there's a path not filled with blessings.
And by the way, to the world, it probably looks like a successful path often, because I get that. Why is this person and there? You have no idea what the reality of that is.
Right. So to the degree that an individual is continuously, proactively detaching themselves from their ego, then they are attaching themselves, to their essence, to their soul, really being connected deeply with who they are. And that's the indication of that, is that they care less and less of what the world thinks of them, because you only care what the world thinks of you if you don't really know who you are. So when an individual really connects to their soul, to their essence, and that becomes their truth, their reality, that allows to be revealed to them the path that is filled with the blessings that are theirs, because they're actually being themselves. They're actually living their soul. The person who's living the ego, which unfortunately probably most of the world is living, they are not connected to themselves, and therefore they can't be connected to their true path. And their true path, which holds all the blessings that they actually desire and actually want, won't be revealed. So if you were not scared enough to do the work of separating from the ego, because it's the right thing, the spiritual thing that may be connected to yourself, also know that, one of the reasons why an individual hasn't found their soulmate yet is because they're too attached to their ego. Because your soulmate can't be revealed to you, for example, unless you're actually who you are, connected to who your soul actually is. And this is, again,
That's really powerful.
It's about soulmates, but it's about every and all blessings that we're meant to have. And if you have that vision that there are two paths set up for me in life, one filled with blessings from my soul that are mine, but that can only be revealed to me to the degree that I'm deeply connected to who I am. And there's that other path of the ego that, yes, I'll have ups and downs and maybe some things that other people might think are blessings or whatever, however the external world looks at them. But for me, for the individual, they will not be.
It's so interesting because that is so hard for people to navigate and see the two paths. The ones that's full of soul blessings might not look like it. You can't even actually see it if you're on the ego path. It doesn't even exist in your reality.
Exactly.
But if you start slowly chipping away and really choosing change, you're going to start to see the second path. And the more that you do that, that path becomes clearer and stronger and more shiny. And then it's the obvious choice.
Absolutely.
But so often people, they confuse that ego path with soul path, because even on the ego path, you can be doing good things. You can even be very
have
spiritual.
Success, whatever that means.
Right.
And to the point, and you've mentioned this many times, maybe in the last podcast or the one before that, that you can be on one path, and for instance, the path of your soul, where the blessings are there, where your soulmate is, and then you can make a choice. We always have free will to, for whatever reason in life, and sometimes you said this, sometimes when actually success happens, to choose ego over soul, to choose what other people think about me over what I think of me and my essence. And then you block yourself to your soulmate. And your soulmate, you might even be married to them, but now they no longer shine for you.
That's right. That's right. It's very scary. And this explains why people cannot see.
Exactly.
Why we get blind. So this is the whole point of change, because in choosing change, the vessel that you currently have needs to crack. It cracks it open to be able to understand more, to see more, to grow your consciousness. So
and
that
it detaches you from your ego, which is the whole point.
It's the only way to attack. Because why? Ego wants comfort. Soul wants change.
Exactly.
And that's the formula. It's very powerful.
I was thinking about how to make this practical when we talk about the proactive work diminishing the ego. Again, I don't know how much for our listeners, I'm hoping it is, but for our listeners, how practical it is. So I'll give an example. So this past week, like when you start smiling, we were having a disagreement about something. You probably remember what it was. I don't.
I'll get there. Let me keep talking.
Okay. And I remember as what happens in any argument or disagreement, it comes up, and then the conversation continues about it. Sometimes you take a break and you come back to it. Mm-hmm. And I love how excited you get about this. And then I remember.
You remember the argument. I did.
I don't. What was it about? You want to tell me? Don't tell me. Is it something too personal?
Yes.
Okay. So then
I felt.
Then I remember as we were having that argument, I literally felt my ego get involved in it, right? Where right or wrong was not as important as, no, my ego needs to be right, even though it might know that it might necessarily be right. If only our listeners could see your face right now. And so what I ask of our listeners is even before you're ready to change, or even before you're ready to really separate yourself from the ego, at least start noticing it. Next time you have an argument with your spouse, next time you have an argument or something happens, stop. You might not even have to change. You might not even do anything positive about it, but just notice. Is this about truth? Or is it now my ego is involved, so it needs to be right, even though it knows it's not right, or even knows it's not completely right? And I think the first step to really proactively and consistently separating ourselves from the ego is noticing it. And if we're honest with ourselves, I don't know, 50 times a day, 100 times a day, there's the ego touch. And if you're not ready to completely disassociate from it, if you're not ready to completely remove yourself from it, at least start noticing it. Start noticing how silly, like, why is it? If you're in an argument or a disagreement and you know you're 60% wrong, whatever, it doesn't even matter what percent wrong, what is the force? What is the logic of trying to make yourself right?
I like the force. It's interesting because
yeah,
I do remember very specifically because it was one theme that played out in 3 different scenarios, and then we got on the other side of it. But I had something come up with somebody else, because it might be too hard for our listeners at first to really recognize even though that's the most important thing in those close relationships, a partner, children, parents, whatever, right? But it happens to us every day in small ways with strangers or acquaintances or people we're friendly with. And so I had a misunderstanding with somebody, and I didn't want to, I was fine if the relationship did not continue anymore, because I'm not that invested in the relationship, but we did have exchanges, and I didn't want it to end on a note where that was the last taste I had. And of course I looked at my part too, and I did have ego in it and in one of the responses. And so I really made an effort to reach out again in a very thoughtful way. And it took a week because I wanted to do it thoughtfully. Took her time to get back. And now I feel really good. We both came to a place where we're like, okay, we still value each other, even if the relationship is changing. At the very minimum, do that, right? There's always in every exchange a moment where you're saying, would I do it this way again? What could I do better? And if you simply just ask that question, then you're going to go back and, call your ego out on something. Everybody has ego. We all do. Even if it's 5%, right? And the other person was 95% in the wrong, which it's usually not that, right? Yep. Yeah. So Kabbalah teaches that the only thing that's truly permanent is light. Everything physical changes. Every role changes. Every chapter changes. Every identity changes. So stop fighting it. Change can be painful because it reminds us of how little we truly are in control. And suffering often comes from trying to make temporary things permanent. We want certainty.
I would say almost always.
I know. We want certainty. We want guarantees. And maybe the most compassionate thing we can do during periods of change is to allow ourselves to first feel loss. That's okay. But then to recognize what it is. And if you're in that in-between space right now, when life feels undefined, where the future feels unclear, where you feel both grief and the possibility of something new at the same time, nothing's gone wrong. You're just living life fully and meaningfully.
Beautiful. And I would just underscore something we said earlier, which is that any and all pain, almost all pain, comes from a attachment to the ego. Okay. And the more completely we understand that, the more forcefully we'll fight against that and do everything we can every single day to notice and then diminish our ego. So I'd like to share email from one of our listeners. Dear Michael and Monica. Oh, actually, no, dear Monica and Michael. From the very first moment my partner and I saw your videos, we felt completely inspired. It's that feeling where your heart tells you, in quotes, it's here. The same feeling we had when we came across the teachings of Kabbalah. From the first time we both met.
I love that. I got the goosies.
We had exactly the same feeling you described on your podcast. We called each other soulmates while looking into each other's eyes, and we didn't even know the true meaning of it. But that's how we felt. Our love, respect, and appreciation haven't stopped growing since then. From the beginning, it's been a journey of growth, of moving through many wounds, and of finding the key to freedom, which was right inside ourselves all along. First, we wanted to thank you for answering so many of the questions we've had along this path. Thank you for being a light and inspiring others to be that light too. We've been connecting with the mission of helping other people create relationships of growth and expansion for a while now. And ever since we heard you speak, that calling has felt stronger every day. We'd love to know if at some point you, especially Monica, I understand why.
You added that.
No, that's what it says. In parentheses, especially Monica, will offer a training with everything you've learned throughout your life in this context. We would absolutely love to study with you. Thank you once again. We'll follow you every step you take. We'll see you in New York before long at the Kabbalah Center. Blessings and love from Spain.
Well, here's what I can say. Why don't you send us questions? And we can make it a goal to answer maybe one every episode or every couple episodes. And that way you can have direct access while also inspiring and sharing with others.
That's a great idea. And again, thank you, Inara, for sharing with us and with all of our listeners. This is a good opportunity to remind all of our listeners, share this podcast with everybody you know. Go to Apple Podcasts, write 5-star reviews. Continue to send us your emails, questions, comments to Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. And as always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Stay spiritually hungry.